safeguarding, child protection, every child matters, social services. 6 weeks into my pregnancy, without my formal knowledge or my consent, a midwife shared my information with social services who got involved for the protection and care of my unborn child. Social services for children and vulnerable people is a complex system. Different partners have different priorities. On one hand, midwives had a priority to inform social services, and social services had their priority. However, I feel like both of these parties did abuse their role. Sharing my information without my permission, I should have at least been told, since I was at risk to myself or to my unborn child or to others, that my information would be shared with social services. During the call with social services, they were very intrusive and adamant and persistent that it was in my best interest to meet with them. To be honest, I couldn't refuse. Not because they glittered it up and it made it sound nice, it's because they called me constantly. So the social worker agreed to meet me after my appointment. She introduced herself as a student social worker. She asked me, oh, so how do you juggle having a baby and study? She said, oh, so what year of your studies are you in? I said, last year. What year of the studies are you in, honey? And within maybe 30 minutes, it was all over. I'd agreed, I'll come to your first little whack meeting, and you told me you would call it a day. However, following on, the next day, I think she was quite intimidated by me because she called me up, because she didn't tell me this when I was there. But when she called me up, she said, oh, by the way, I feel that I've decided, or I've concluded, or me and my team, professionals love all that, me and my team want to conduct a assessment on you because we haven't met your child's father. Right. I'm not going to begin to suggest that social services is a useless organisation, but it's about building relationships in a short space of time. I believe that if the social worker was warm and approachable, maybe I could have shared some information with her. To be honest, I won't lie. I won't lie and say that my African parents were happy that their first child who was still at school was pregnant at 17. I won't lie to you and say that. But I don't feel like I was put into a position to share that information. I wasn't informed of the support that I could get regarding this. I wasn't informed of the support I would get if I disclosed this. So for me, it wasn't worth sharing. As a social worker, you're working with parents under the age of 20. You need to change your clinical behavior. You need to have a more advanced way of working, because all that kind of tick boxing scenario, we see through that and we just give you the stupid answers that you want. From her tone on the phone, it was kind of obvious that she wasn't gonna, to say the least. So I decided maybe I could call social services, speak to her manager and reason with them. After a lot of I'll call you back from social services, the student social worker's manager finally called me back and basically said that she fully agreed with the student social worker's decision, and actually she has decided that she'll also be following the student social worker to my assessment, and she highly suggested that I should bring my child's dad with me. It felt less like a suggestion and a bit more like a threat. The day slowly approached to the dreaded assessment day, and to be honest, my conversations with my child's dad wasn't any more effective and he couldn't come. I'm so sorry. No, there was no way. Assessment was just long and laborious. It went on for like an hour with like a million questions. And following on from that whole laborious thing, I got a letter in the post saying that social services have decided that due to the uncertainty of my accommodation, they will remain in my life for another year. And I just thought, are you having a... After having a tantrum and filling up with a whole load of rage and fear and anger and exhaustion from the whole scenario, I realised, baby girl, it's crunch time. You got to sort this out. I literally came out of my antenatal appointment one day and I saw a solicitor's firm. So I went in and I said, I'd love to speak to a lawyer. This is the scenario, blah, 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 blah. And the very next day, they said I could get a consultation. I had the consultation with the lawyer. She said she'll fight on my behalf. Thankfully, I didn't have to pay any solicitor fees because I was underage. Ching, ching. This made a difference. Only when I had someone advocating for me did I see a change in tone from social services. This is the only power I had, and it wasn't even any power. I felt powerless. My issue is that there wasn't any significance to what I wanted to get out of this assessment, what I wanted to get out of the plan and care for this unborn child. The social workers didn't care that I was studying. They didn't care that I wasn't dependent on the welfare system. They didn't care that I was working. These weren't significant for them, but they were important to me. This whole situation, having to go to social worker meetings, having to go to meet my lawyer sending letters to them, social workers responding, having to also go to antenatal appointments, having to go to college, studying, having sleepless nights. This all went on until 8 months. The only thing, by his grace, that changed my fate, at 8 months I had a safeguarding meeting. And in the safeguarding meeting, there was the social worker for my unborn child, the social worker's manager, a social worker for myself, a key worker, an advocate, and a housing department officer. 6 adults and just me. And they all came round and they would decide my fate. Thankfully, by the end of this meeting, I think due to the influence of the other professionals, the social workers agreed that they would close my case. And although I was so grateful that prior to this, they said they was going to be in my child's life until she was 1, they changed their decision on this. And I was relieved. But although I'm relieved, there are parents coming up behind me that are still going through this. And they might not have the confidence. They may not have the ability. Like me, they may feel really depressed, really isolated, to even seek support. What happens to them? That's basically London.